Hello everybody and welcome back to Shark Games. In this video I will be showing you guys how to easily make an online multiplayer game in Unity using the Photon engine. For those who don't know, Photon is an online multiplayer engine that allows you to easily make multiplayer games using Unity. First of all, you will need to have a game or an idea for a game that you want to turn into a multiplayer experience. I have the super simple game project where you can walk around and that's pretty much it. I will leave the entire project for you to download in the description. To create a multiplayer game, we need to make a server to host our game. When you do something in an online game, that action goes to the server where it is processed. Then it gets sent to all of the other players as well as back to you. To create a server via Photon, go to photonengine.com where you can create a free server. Press sign in and create an account if you don't have one yet, or log in to an existing one. Once you're signed in, go to dashboard, create a new server by pressing create a new app. Select multiplayer game, set Photon SDK to PAN, then give your server a name and you can optionally add a description. Now that Photon is set up, we need to add it to Unity. Go to the Unity Asset Store and search for Photon PAN. You can select the free one and add it to Unity and then open it in Unity. Make sure to download and import the package into your Unity project. You will now need to add an app ID or email. Go back to your Photon dashboard and copy the app ID from your server. Then paste it in Unity. Photon and Unity are now connected. Before you can play a multiplayer game, you first need to connect to the server. Create a new scene called loading. I have the simple scene with some text that says loading and a simple loading animation. Now let's create an empty game object called connect. Then in my scripts folder, I create a new script called connect and add it to the connect object. Open the script. First remove the start and update function and import photon.pan. Also add monobehavior pan callbacks. The photon.pan library allows us to do everything related to Photon and multiplayer. Next, go to the start function and add photonnetwork.connect using settings. This will connect the player to our Photon server. The last part of the script will allow us to actually join the game lobby. Add using Unity engine.scene management and then create the public override void onConnected to master and add photonnetwork.joinLobby. Then make another function called public override void onJoinedLobby and in that we say scene manager.loadScene lobby. Now please note that this will be the name of the scene of your lobby, which in my case is just called lobby. Now that we can connect to the lobby, we actually need to make a lobby. I have the simple scene called lobby. First, make sure that all scenes are added to our build by going to File, Build Settings and press Add Open Scenes in every scene that you want to add. Now create a new game object in your lobby scene called Room Manager. Then create a new C# script called Room Manager and drag it onto the Room Manager object. First add photon.pan and monobehavior pan callbacks. If you are using TextMesh Pro, also add TM Pro, otherwise add Unity Engine.ui, but I'm using TM Pro. So we need some variables. We can make a serialized field private TMP input field called create input and then a serialized field private TMP input field called join input. And make the variables private with a serialized field before it. That way we can edit them in the inspector without having to make them public variables. Next we will create a function to make and join a room. So let's create a public void create room and in it we will say photonnetwork.createRoom createInput.text. Basically, this function will be called when we press the create room button. Then it will use the create input.text, which is the other input field, to give the room a name. Next, we create a public void join room, in which we will say photonnetwork.joinRoom joinInput.text. This will do the same thing, except we will join a room. Please note that if you create a room, you will automatically join it too. Finally, let's put the player into the game scene when they have joined a lobby. Create a public override void on joined room, and then in it we will say photonnetwork.loadLevel called game, but this will be the name of any scene that you want to load. When you want to load a scene in a multiplayer context, make sure to use photonnetwork.loadLevel instead of scene manager.loadScene. Now go back into Unity and drag and drop the create and join input fields to their variables. Also go to the create and join buttons and select the correct function to be called when they are pressed. So that will be the create room function on the create room button and the join room function on the join room button. Let's go to the game scene and select our player. Then add the Photon View component. This will allow the player to be synced over the server, meaning that other players will be able to see what is happening to it. You need to add this component to any game object that you want other players to see. Now create a new folder in your assets called resources with a capital R and drag our player in here. This will create a prefab that we can spawn on the server. Any game object that you want to spawn using Instantiate in an online game will need to be saved in the resources folder. Now in our scene, create an empty game object called player spawner and create and add a new script called player spawner. Add photon.pun and let's create some variables. First we need a serialized field private game object called player prefab. This will be our player prefab, and then a serialized field private transform array called spawn points. The spawn points variable is an array that will be containing every place where the player can spawn. Now go back into Unity and under our player spawner object I'll add 4 empty game objects called spawn point and place them at different positions in the scene. Then I'll drag and drop these objects into the spawn points variable as well as the player prefab into the player prefab variable. Now let's spawn each player in the code using transform place to spawn equals spawn points random.range between 0 and span points.length. Placing this in our start function means that it will run when the game starts and it will basically select a random transform from our spawn points array. Next we will spawn our player using photonnetwork.instantiate, player prefab.name, place to spawn and finally quaternion.identity. First we selected a random spawn point from the spawn points array and then we spawn a player prefab at that location. Whenever you want to spawn a prefab through the server, make sure to use photonnetwork.instantiate instead of the regular instantiate. We could test the game right now, however we will run into the problem that every player can control every player character instead of just their own one. To fix this, go to your player controller script and add using photon.pun. Then create a private photon view called view variable, and then in our start function we will say view equals getComponent photon view. Then under our private void update we will check if view.isMine is not equal to true, and if it isn't true then we will just return. Then I'll do the same in fixed update. Now we need to sync the player's movements to the server. To do this we simply need to go to our resources folder, then go to the player object and add the photon transform view classic component. Then I'll check all 3 options and disable teleport for great distance. Since I'm using rigid body 2Ds here to move the player, I will also add the rigid body 2D view component. If you have any other things you want to sync like animations, then be sure to add those components too. Now let's build our game. Create a room and test it out. Everything should be working as intended. In the next episode I will be expanding on this project by adding an improved lobby system as well as some other things. I hope you guys found this video useful and I'll see you guys in the next one.